Previously on Chaos Head Noah.
病気だったんだろ。精神病のことがバレて余計におかしくなっちゃったらしいぜ。さっき飛べるとか言ってたぜ。やべえよ、やばすぎる。俺、人が死ぬとこマジで見てんだけど、人黒すぎて最高だぜ。早く落ちてこねえかな。
I could hear things like that coming from everywhere around me. Don't tell me. I had a bad feeling about this. Fearfully following the gazes of the other students, I looked up at the school building. Fess? On the edge of the rooftop stood a single girl. In her hand, just like during the concert, was a D-sword, with a pose emblematic of praying to God in the heavens above. On the edge of the roof stood Kishimoto Ayase.
歌はもうたくさん歌ったわ。それで足りないって言うなら、ね、大いなる意志よ。
Ayase spread her arms out far and wide, as if trying to embrace the sky itself, as if trying to show her presence to God on high.
私は飛ぶわ。
The pale blue pulsation of her sword intensified. Ayase closed her eyes once more, and in that moment, a final tear dropped from the corner of her eye.
お願い、この器は差し出すから、魂を連れて行って。
And then, without a moment's hesitation, the girl, with nothing there to support her, took a step forward.
帰るべき場所へ。
生きて。
Huh? She was alive? Well, look at that. Ayase wasn't getting up. I couldn't tell if her bones were crushed. I couldn't tell if her bones had ruptured. But her gray matter hadn't spurted everywhere, nor had her dark blood. A small, feeble groan escaped from Ayase's mouth. She was alive. She seemed to be unconscious, and she wasn't moving. But she was alive. She was barely even injured. There was only a small drop of blood on her forehead. She had fallen from the rooftop, but there she was, lying there almost completely unharmed, lying atop a flower bed.
花壇に
Was there always a flower bed there?
ご安心を。先ほど申しました通り、すべては想定の範囲内。いずれ近いうちに選挙での票集めに苦労することも、強引な勧誘活動を告発される恐れもなくなるでしょう。我々が日本を、いや世界を変える日もじきに。
口を慎め。300人委員会への造反が知れれば、我らに待っているのは破滅だけだ。
君の役目は計画通りに事を進めることであって、それ以上でも以下でもないよ。
調整は我々がやる。
承知しています。
それで第二世代についての報告を聞こうか。
お二人にも満足していただける仕上がりですよ。ノア2はね。
Noah 2?
の
Mustering up all my courage, I called after her. I expected her to ignore me, but instead, she stopped and turned around. Her expression remained stern, but she still looked like she was willing to listen to what I had to say.
力って何なの?
Sena knew something. She'd asked me if I created the flower bed from before. Everyone but me had recognized the flower bed as something that had always been there, but that didn't seem to apply to Sena.
さっきの花壇どうなって？
お前が妄想したんだろ?
A delusion. I had, but...
妄想は現実にすることが可能だ。本当じゃないものが景色に紛れ込む。つまりエラーを現実として認識させる。
でも視界に映すだけじゃそれって幻でしかないよ。
It was fun chatting with you earlier. Before anything else, though, I should mention the sender name is an alias. My actual name is Shougan. I'm glad Ayase-san's safe. I initially planned to paint her as the next victim of my new gen canvas, but suicide works too. You've outdone yourself, Takumi-kun. You've got a new high score. I'm very impressed. You really are something special. But enough about that stuff. Let's talk about Nishijo Nanami-tan. The two of you are siblings, so I'd love to see some juicy drama unfold between you two. Ever since the earthquake hit, Shibuya has been pretty bloodthirsty. Whether we can reach a conclusion so touching, it'll blast all that away in an instant. That's up to you. It's real hard to clear quests unarmed, isn't it? You're a hero, so don't you feel you deserve a legendary sword to match? I know you do, so I hope you're looking forward to what I've got in store for you. At 9 p.m. tonight, I want you to come to the roof of O-Front. You're going to be on TV, so make sure you put on a heroic tunic. Now then, let the quest to rescue Nanami begin! P.S. Before I forget, did you get my present?
やだやだやだやだやだやだやだやだやだやだやだやだ
Mumbling that like a prayer, I opened the box. Inside was a lump of aluminum foil, packed carefully with cushioning material. I peeked fearfully inside the box, but the phone was nowhere to be seen. The song was coming from inside the foil. Sweat got in my eyes, and it stung. Before I knew it, my entire body had gotten soaked in sweat. Lying in the foil was a hand. A cleanly severed, slender hand. Grasped in that hand was a phone identical to mine. And wrapped around its wrist was...
へえ、かわいいバングルじゃん。じゃあさ、これナナにちょうだい。お兄どう？似合う？
A yellow leather bandana turned crimson. A bangle.
なんだこの小汚い連中は。
我が社ではポーターと呼んでいます。
This guy's got a Saratan shirt on from the looks of it. And porters.
言い換えればマインドコントロールのための部隊といったところでしょうか。
These backpacks that they're carrying. That man that Sena confronted in that park must be one of these so-called porters.
彼らが背負っているリュックの中には ノア2のパルス波を送受信するためのポートが入っています。ポートは信号を受け取るとリモートで周囲へと放出するわけです。
歩く端末というわけか。それならば有効範囲の制限などないに等しいな。
限定的使用も問題ないことになるね。
状況は理解した。貴様は引き続き計画を続行したまえ。
ただし300人委員会に悟られるような言動はくれぐれも慎むように。
あとは何人犠牲を出そうと構わん。
ご理解いただきありがとうございます。それではポーターとして使える人材を提供していただきたいです。
手配しよう。
それと引き続き先生方にはメディアのコントロールをお願いいたします。すべては我ら3人の目指す理想のために。
And so it continues. Greetings, my name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, before we get started today, I just wanted to let you guys know that, I have been dealing with some sickness for the past couple weeks. I seem to be mostly over it now, but just in case I enter a sudden coughing fit that I can't fully edit out or anything like that in the finished video, well, no, that's kind of the reason why. I still got some slight residual symptoms here and there I'm still dealing with. Mainly a lingering cough. I've taken a cough drop before I start recording this, so hopefully that will help keep that particular symptom under control. But yeah, if it ends up sounding like I'm hacking a lung mid-sentence at any point here, well, I promise you I'm not hacking a lung, and I'm actually pretty okay, despite how bad it might potentially sound. So, with all that being in the way, we got a quest that we got to fulfill, don't we? It involves dear poor Nanami, who may likely be missing a hand now, courtesy of Shougan. And now I kind of want to tear off one of his hands, because how dare you? That's not nice. She could have used that hand for something. It could have been part of her career aspirations as an adult, for all we know. So, trying to remember the exact location where we're supposed to go, but I'm sure Takumi will remind me, but I know it's somewhere here within smack in the center of Shibuya. I forcibly shoved Seirotan's figure inside the inner pocket of my uniform. I had brought Seirotan as a good luck charm. In a normal situation, I would never get caught dead carrying around a figure, because it could get damaged, obviously. Destroying your precious waifu was the most horrible thing an otaku could do, so don't do it, my friend! But right now, I couldn't bring myself to abide by my usual policies. I needed the emotional support above all else. And on top of that, I might not live to see another day anyway. I took one last glance at Seirotan. Her head was sticking out of my pocket, and by doing so, I managed to hold back the tears that were on the verge of flowing out. Suddenly, someone bumped into me from behind, making me stumble. I turned around to see some Dokyun staring at me with an annoyed look. And yet, much to my surprise, he didn't say anything. He simply vanished into the crowd. I looked around. I was at Scramble Crossing. The crowd was so huge, it was hard to believe it was 9 p.m. on a weekday. Not to mention the very same day an earthquake had killed 100 people. It felt like I was suffocating, waiting for the pedestrian signal. People were surrounding me from every direction. But for some reason I wasn't aware of, the media was flooding in too. People with huge TV cameras were forcing themselves onto the road, halting traffic. The flashes coming from them every couple seconds nearly blinded me. Let me guess. If I were to look up towards the very building I need to go to, will I see Nanami hanging over the ledge of said rooftop building? Is that why we're getting a crowd of onlookers and cameramen and such? A group of people who were likely reporters were giving passionate speeches to their respective cameras. A few policemen were attempting to shoo away the mass media and pedestrians standing in the road, but getting back control of the situation seemed pretty much impossible. It was like a paradise for people without cars. Were they holding some kind of event? Why this late? Why today? Again, look at where they're looking. Now you'll probably get your answer. And I bet Nanami's involved. Considering 100 people had died, that was definitely in bad taste. Did they have any kind of respect? And if there was an event, it was crazy that even the mass media was joining in on the insanity. Japan was over. Nah, not that mattered to me. My country's over! Who gives a shit?
助けなきゃ。僕が助けなきゃ。
The place Shougan had told me to go to was O-Front. Thank you! It was O-Front. A building which sat right in the front of Scramble Crossing. The one with the Tatsuya and star bricks located inside it. Ah, star bricks. So instead of a cup of joe, to give you a cup of brick? I really didn't want to come alone. But I couldn't get in touch with Remy no matter how many times I tried. Well, at least you've been trying. And the police were probably still mistaking me for the new-gen culprit, so I couldn't go to them. But the time Shougan had set was getting closer and closer, and I was too worried about Nanami to stay home, so I had no choice but to go there, while holding on to Seiratan. I carved a path through the sea of people, and somehow managed to get inside O-Front. Unfortunately for me, it was pretty crowded inside too, but I didn't even have the strength to be upset about it. The only thing on my mind were my prayers for Nanami's safety. I took the escalator that led to the upper floors. Using one of the windows inside the star bricks, I was able to look down towards Scramble Crossing. Now that I was looking at it from above, it was even more crowded than I'd thought. And they weren't just standing there either. Some were waving, some were jumping, and some were doing both. Countless dark heads bobbed up and down. It was even more blinding now than when I was down there. It felt like all the lights were pointed at me. With each new floor the escalator brought me to, my heartbeat got faster and faster. I took out my phone to check the time. There was 1 minute left before 9 p.m. The time he'd set. Better start moving those legs then. The thought of Shougan killing Nanami out of anger. It terrified me so much that I started sprinting up the steps of the escalator, pushing aside anyone in my way. I changed to an elevator to access the top floor. I didn't know how to get on the rooftop after that, but as I wandered around, I spotted an emergency staircase. No one stopped me as I shot through it, and I successfully made my way to the rooftop. A strong wind was blowing. Considering it was the end of October, it was weirdly lukewarm outside. It took a minute, but I soon realized it wasn't a natural breeze, but one blown by the outdoor AC unit. I buttoned the front button of my uniform so that Seiratan wouldn't fall out. I felt a slight sense of relief when I heard Seiratan's voice in my head. Seiratan was with me, so there was nothing to be afraid of. I disagree. I desperately tried to convince myself of that. But before that moment, I had yet to realize how dark it was. The only source of light was from the back of the lit au front sign. Ironically, the neon lights from the surrounding buildings were too bright for me to see anything. If someone was hiding in the shadows, I would have been incapable of seeing them. My heartbeat, which had started to finally calm down, skyrocketed once again after hearing those words break the silence. I looked all around me, but I was unable to figure out what direction the voice had come from. And then I heard a sound. A squeaking sound that I had heard several times before. This time, I deliberately focused my gaze into the rampant darkness. There, I spotted the glow. The backlit outline of a wheelchair's wheels.
Huh?
Shougan.
Takumi-kun.
Why is his voice distorted? He was talking to me like he knew me. Like we were friends. It felt so wrong. Goosebumps sprang up on my skin. I didn't want to talk to him. I was too scared. I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. Shougan met us face to face at one point earlier, and even then has been stalking us. And every time we heard his voice didn't sound distorted then. Especially in our first face-to-face encounter where he was talking to us directly. Why distort his voice now? Unless this Shougan I'm talking to now is a different person than the person that I've been thinking about up until now. In which case, who are you, son? Oh, whoops! I forgot to read this. I didn't want to talk to I didn't want to talk to him. I was too scared. I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. But Nanami was.
君はすごく勇気のある人だ。ちゃんと一人で来てくれるとは。ありがとうと言っておくよ。
His accent sounds a bit familiar. Where have I heard it? Wait a minute. Something was off about him. He was different from before. Yeah, his voice. Something was off about his voice. I'm glad I'm not the only one who's noticing this. And here I was beginning to wonder if I was actually losing my marbles.
その声。
声なんて
ただの空気の振動でしかないよ。
どう聞こえるか、その場の条件によって変わる。
そうだろ?
What was going on? His voice kept changing. Was he using some kind of voice changer? That's what I'm assuming. Did he want to hide who he was by disguising his voice? Why now, then? Why hadn't he before? That aside, I wasn't following what he was saying. You're right. You're completely right, Saratan. Saratan always spoke nothing but the truth. Hard disagree. I tightly squeezed Saratan's body through my clothes.
Nanamiはどこ?
It felt like my heart was about to burst from the fear. Even still, I desperately forced out my voice. I thought stuff like this only happened in TV and video games.
ナナミはもう死んだの？
ダウト。だって手首ちょん切られちゃったんだろ。もし生きてるにしても、もうすぐ出血多量で死んじゃうのは変わんないよ。
Tears began to flow. Nanami's sulking face appeared in my mind. Honestly, she was a brat. A really annoying one. And yet, despite that, I was so sad. Sad enough for tears to flow.
ナナミは僕の妹なんだ。僕の大切な。なんで殺したんだ。ひどいよ。
死んだと思う。もしかしたら君の家に送ったあの手首は別人のものかもしれないよ。
I have, yes, but why does that hand have Nanami's bracelet? If that isn't her hand.
バングルと携帯はナナミちゃんのものだとしても、手首そのものは別人のものかもしれないっていうこと。
Okay, then can I see her wrists right now? Nanami was alive?
信じちゃダメだってば。
君が見事クエストをクリアしたら、ナナミちゃんは返すよ。生きているナナミちゃんをね。
Quest. Shougan had used that word again. Did he want me to think of this like a game? But the real me wasn't a hero. He wasn't anything like one.
でももしクリアできなかった場合、ナナミちゃんは帰ってこない。
Suddenly, Shogun's voice became cold as ice. Getting scared of some old guy like this was pathetic, but this man wasn't normal. This man was the new gen culprit.
だから僕を失望させないようやり遂げてほしい。君ならできるよ。
なんで僕なの？僕じゃなくても、僕なんかじゃなくてもいいじゃないか。
君でなくちゃダメなんだ。
だからなんで？
君は選ばれた人間だから。
I was the chosen one?
勘違いしちゃダメだよ、タッキー。
Oh no, I think this Shougan fellow we're talking to now has a very interesting idea that I very much would like him to elaborate on. Please do. What is this chosen one exactly? Chosen for what? I'm very curious.
あいつの言う選ばれたってのは次の犠牲者として選ばれたって意味なんだから。
Does it perchance have anything to do with the seven Black Knights and Gladiol and whatnot that we researched and what Ayase was referring to? The tragic end of all new gen victims flashed through my mind, sending shivers down my spine.
君は今日の昼間のことをもちろん覚えているよね。
Ayase's attempted suicide, right?
昼間？
学校で君は岸本綾瀬を助けた。
Shougan had also mentioned Ayase's suicide attempt in the email. He must have been observing the whole debacle from somewhere. Or maybe he'd been mind controlling Ayase. Maybe he was the reason she tried to kill herself. A distinction without a difference as far as the end result is concerned, because if he was mind controlling Ayase, he would be basically getting the front row seat in what she was doing. So either way, he was observing the action from somewhere.
あの花壇のおかげで岸本綾瀬は一命を取り留めた。そうでしょ?
Shougan knew about my power. Back at school, no one had even questioned the existence of the flower bed. The only one that had was Seina. Then she'd gone on to accuse me.
お前が妄想したんだろ。
タッキー、将軍の言うことは全力で否定して。
Right. Maybe the entire reason why Shougan was following me around, why he was trying to kill me, was because I had powers. If I claimed I didn't have any powers, maybe he'd let me off the hook. Like he'd really buy that. Like he would actually buy that.
そんな力ない。
力？力って何のこと？僕はそんな言葉は一言も使っていないが。
Shit.
タッキーには力なんてないよ。ただの肝オタなんだよ。タッキーにヒーローの素質なんてないさ。私にハーハーしてるだけの無害な引きこもり予備軍。そうっしょ?
I could not have asked for a better cheerleader than you, Saratan. Yeah. The idea that I had actual, real-life powers was nothing more than chuny bullshit I dreamt up. I'd almost been convinced by what Seina and Ayase had told me. But those two are raging mental cases. They weren't right in the head. And I wouldn't be much better if I'd actually just believed them without a second thought. Even Rimi had said it was delusional.
詳しく説明してくれない？あの花壇のこととか。
僕がやったっていう証拠はあるの？
That's curious. You don't know how exactly I caused that to happen? Seems very odd to me. You strike me as the sort of person who should know, given the circumstances.
花壇を何もないところから出現させるなんて、そんなの僕には無理。
花壇が何もないところから出現したんだ。他の人は誰もが最初からそこに花壇があったって話していたけど。
I'm assuming he spoke to students and staff members, so he definitely had to have been somewhere very close by.
君だけは花壇は最初はそこになかったってそう認識しているわけだ。
No. I dug my grave even deeper. What kind of monster was this guy? When he mentioned that he'd talked to everyone, did that mean he'd physically gone to my school and talked to the people there? I don't know what else he could mean.
僕は力なんてない。自分でも一体どうやったのか。
But wait a minute. If he actually did that, then wouldn't people have started talking about how there's this guy how's this old-looking guy in a wheelchair going around talking to people about what happened with Ayase? Would have figured it, but wait a minute, no. No, because if that did happen, Takumi ended up leaving right after Ayase fell. I don't think he went back to school, if I remember correctly. So, I can't really verify from that whether or not a guy in a wheelchair was going around asking people this or someone else entirely. Well, shit. Oh well, maybe I can figure it out some other way. Who our mystery man here is exactly, because I'm not convinced it's the same Shougan we've been dealing with until now. Because again, why disguise your voice? Why now? And clearly that Shougan has the ability to alter reality, or at least people's perceptions of reality, to where he can't really be perceived by anybody other than ourselves. So why this then, if he has those powers? The only conclusion I can come up with is that this Shougan we're dealing with now is a different individual from the one we've been dealing with up until this point.
でも使えた。君が妄想したことが現実になった。
惑わされないで。タッキー、本当に力なんてあると思う？そんなのアニメの世界じゃん。タッキーがいるのは現実なんだよ。花壇のことも綾瀬っちが2人に分裂したことも、それらが現実だったって証明できる？無理っしょ？分裂した綾瀬っちの体に触った？
No。
ただの幻かも。そもそもタッキーはあの時警察とかユアッチに追われて動転してたし。
Then what about the flower bed?
同じだよ。花壇は最初からそこにあった。
No, it wasn't, Saratan.
タッキーはリミッチを探してあそこへ行った時、頭が痛くてフラフラしてた。綾瀬っちが落ちるまでにはっきりとそこに花壇があることを確認した？
No, we checked before she fell. I'm pretty sure I remembered that detail at least. And there wasn't a flower bed there.
みんな誰一人として花壇が出現したことを疑問に思ってないってことはさ、逆に言えば最初からそこにあったから疑問に思わないってことっしょ？
Nope.
タッキーが間違えてただけなんだよ。将軍の言葉に惑わされちゃダメ。
花壇は最初からそこにあった。
I repeated what Saratan had said.
最初はそこにはなかったって思い込んでたけど、記憶違いだった。僕の脳内での妄想だよ。だってみんなあそこには花壇があったって言ってるんでしょ。力とかそういうわけのわからないものじゃなくて、ただの思い込みだったんだ。
いや、君には力がある。そうだろ？
死にたくない。
そうだろ？
わからない。殺さないで。
君は自分の天才的な力についてもっと自覚するべきだよ。その潜在能力はすごすぎる。君なら世界を変えることだってできるんだ。
I wanted to go home. I wanted to hold up inside my base and play ESO forever, glued to a chair for eternity like a disabled person. I wanted to spend my days grinning over Saratan's figure and marathoning Bloodtune on loop. That was all I'd wished for.
タッキー、早く逃げて。私がずっと一緒にいてあげる。私だけがタッキーの味方なの。
No, you don't, you little liar.
だから帰ろう。
You tear me down worse than anybody else.
楽しいことだけして生きよ
う。さて、前置きはこれぐらいにして、そろそろクエストを始めよう。まずは下のスクランブル交差点がよく見えるところまで行ってほしい。
逃げなきゃ。このままじゃ本当に殺されちゃうよ。
聞こえなかった？スクランブル交差点を見下ろせるところへ移動するんだ。
His tone was soft, yet his voice was unbelievably cold. His voice was so sharp, any will I had left to defy him was sapped away. My legs were shaking, and they refused to move. I wrapped my arms around myself. I had even lost the ability to discern whether I should listen to his order or not.
僕の言うことが聞けない。従ってもらわないと、ナナミちゃんの命は保証できないよ。
どうせもう死んじゃってるよ。タッキーが今から頑張ったってただの無駄死にだよ。
ナナミの声聞かせて。
I managed to squeeze that out, my voice small as could be. However, Shougan rejected my request in an instant.
その必要はないよ。君はもう少し今の状況を考えた方がいい。
I didn't want to think about Nanami's death. I didn't want to imagine her dying. I was too afraid that if I imagined it, it would become real. A very real fear to have, all things considered, especially given your abilities. In the end, I relented. I started walking to a spot where I could look down at Scramble Crossing like Shougan had ordered me to. I could barely see where I was going. If I wasn't careful, I could easily trip and fall. On the side of the rooftop facing Scramble Crossing, a transparent acrylic plate protruded out and up at like a wall. It was about 3 stories high. As I approached the wall, I could hear the tumult of the crossing below. A single woman's voice caught my ear. It seemed like it was coming from the Jumbotron mounted on a neighboring building.
アクリル板の壁に一箇所だけ壊れて穴が開いている部分があるだろ。
I wiped away the cold sweat on my forehead, and then, moving all in my eyes, I looked toward the wall. Just as Shougan had said, there was a hole where a single person could pass through. It had an unnatural shape to it, like it had been smashed open. It had clearly been destroyed by human hands. Of course, there was nothing beyond the hole. Only a sheer 8-story drop leading straight down into the concrete below.
そこから顔を出して、下にいるギャラリーに挨拶してあげて。
As much as I want to believe I could just spontaneously sprout wings and fly or float down, I don't think that's exactly going to happen if I do that. Like, could I at least have a parachute first before taking the plunge? What had he just said?
もう一度言おうか?
I guess I'm not going to get a parachute, am I?
その穴から身を乗り出して、下にいる人たちに手を振ってあげてほしい。
He couldn't mean.
ほら、あいつタッキーを殺す気なんだって。
I gulped. Was this how I'd gotten the 5 people to jump off? No, it isn't. You saw the video. They were effectively mind-controlled off. It really was exactly as Saratan had said. There was no way out of it. I was going to die. He was going to make me jump down from here and die.
そんなの嫌だ。
拒否すれば、ナナミちゃんは死ぬよ。
従えばタッキーは死んじゃうよ。
What the hell was I supposed to do? I tried to figure out what the best course of action was, but the only things circling my mind were the most negative delusions possible. I was unable to think straight. Someone, save me.
鬼のバーカ。
I could hear Nanami's voice echoing within my panic-stricken ears.
ヒヒバーカ。
Memories of Nanami smiling happily resurfaced in my mind. He looked so carefree. Wait, did I just say he? She looked so carefree. It was all my fault. Nanami had nothing to do with any of this. But because of me, she'd gotten kidnapped by Shougan. And then he cut off her hand. I'm sorry, Nanami. I'm so sorry. I wiped away my tears. But I didn't stop them. I wiped once again. Then, with my vision still blurry, I slowly approached the smashed hole. And then, more afraid than I'd ever been before, I looked down. Suddenly, a huge cheer, akin to the rumbling of the very earth itself, came from the people below. A large crowd was gathered in front of the station. The media was there too. They were all there for an event that was about to unfold. Suddenly, a blinding light hit me. I squinted reflexively and looked away. Then, when my eyes landed upon the jumbotron of the closest building, what I saw was, unmistakably, me. Huh? Me? On the jumbotron was my own face. My own face, covered in tears, and with my mouth hanging half open like an idiot. My back was hunched too. For a split second, I thought I was hallucinating. A chill ran through me, as I thought that someone was secretly recording me somewhere. I then considered if what was being projected there was actually images taken from my thoughts by Shougan. But after exhausting every last possible option, I realized that it had to be a live feed of me, right this very moment, at this very place. And the video playing on the jumbotron even had a news ticker featuring sensational taglines. Live from the Shibuya Station Plaza, the amazing Esper Boy finally makes his debut. The ticker commentating the situation was situated along the bottom of the screen. The amazing Esper Boy, endorsed by the psychic of the century, Yuri Brightman, appears. Don't miss this one. Will he divine the new gen perpetrator's true identity? After reading it, I finally understood. I finally understood what the media and the spectators on the scramble crossing below were looking at. It was me. Don't look at me. Oh, Lord, what do I choose here? Fuck. I have a feeling that if I choosing either option here, I could be missing out on some key information or a key event or a key something. Fuck, I'll go with green. Why were they fixated on me? Esper Boy? What the hell was that all about? Did any of them have any idea what happened today? We got hit by a damn earthquake. A seismic intensity 5 one. Over 100 fucking people had died. So why? Why were each and every one of them? Why were they waiting there just to see an otaku freak like me make an ass out of himself? Shougan. It was most likely him who had brought them here. They were all under his mind control. All of them were expecting me to jump off from here and die. An overwhelming surge of negative emotions struck me. Tell me, was there anyone on my side? Suddenly, among the clamor, I heard a voice calling my name. Rimi? A voice all too familiar. A voice I knew. A voice that belonged to the one and only person on my side. It wasn't an illusion. It wasn't an auditory hallucination either. The wobbling screen tells me otherwise. It was Rimi. Rimi was calling for me from somewhere. Where? Where was she? I searched desperately for her. But there were too many people. It was impossible to identify a single person among all of them, especially from this height. Struck by despair, I hung my head in regret. Inevitably, as a consequence of this, I ended up looking directly below me. And there, I saw the figure of a girl looking up at me, waving both hands.
Rimi!
There she was. She had come to save me. Happy as could be, in realizing I had been saved, I nodded over and over again. My vision was blurred by tears of joy. I quickly wiped them away. I didn't want to lose sight of Rimi for even a single second. However, I looked again toward the spot Rimi was waving from, and saw that something was wrong. For some reason, the crowd around Rimi started surrounding her. With Rimi in its center, a clear circle of dark heads began to form. They moved in closer and closer to her. And eventually, who knows how many Dokuns reached toward Rimi and began to jostle her. Hitting was being done to her. She tried to break free from the man-made enclosure, but due to the sheer number of people surrounding her, she couldn't even take one step. It was as if she was standing right in the middle of a morning train. A claustrophobic nightmare, packed to the brim of people heading to work.
Ayase, Rimi ni te wo tasu na yo.
I could faintly hear the sound of her screams. The number of people surrounding Rimi was gradually increasing, as was the intensity of their behavior. As they pushed her around, they pulled at her clothes, and eventually, her jacket was stripped away.
やめろよ。そんなエロゲみたいなことやめて。リミ逃げて。そこから逃げろ。それで早く僕を助けに来て。
My prayers were left unanswered. The crowd rushing toward Rimi was still getting bigger and bigger, and her lone resistance wasn't enough to hold them back. Countless men tore off her clothes, pulled her hair, and dragged her out onto the road. She disappeared into the sea of people, and I lost sight of her. Like hyenas devouring a dead animal's flesh, more and more Dokuns rushed in for a taste, their bodies stirring around where Rimi had just disappeared. Oh God. They were going to rape her. They were going to rape Rimi. The Dokuns who had been brought here were being mind-controlled by Shougan, were going to ruin her, defile her with their filthy hands. And after that, after they were done raping her, she would meet a cruel, merciless end at their hands. Tears started to flow. I bit my lip hard. I wasn't crying simply out of sorrow and anger over what was happening to Rimi. I was crying because of the sheer terror I felt once I realized every single person there was my enemy. There was nowhere to run anymore. I was trapped.
Yada.
What are they cheering? Or chanting, rather. I was scared. This close to pissing myself. Esper boy? I had never felt so close to death before. It felt like my consciousness was drifting away. And now, I was like a child throwing a tantrum. I started to cry. I hoped that, by doing so, Shougan would let me go. I hoped that, by doing so, the crowd below would maybe feel sympathy for me and come save me. I hoped that, by doing so, the police would realize I wasn't the culprit, just an innocent otaku freak, and then they would come save me. I hoped that, by doing so, my parents who would be watching TV at home would come and take my place. I hoped that, by doing so, Rimi maybe would come rushing in to save me. I hoped that, by doing so, I would suddenly wake up and realize it was all a dream. With this myriad of hopes in my mind, I shook my head desperately, and then I cried out my sole wish. I don't want to die. And yet...
その場から一歩でも下がれば、ナナミちゃんは死ぬからね。
Shogun's tone hadn't changed at all from before.
君はもう舞台に上がってしまったんだ。覚醒するには最高のステージだとは思わないか。そこに集まっている人たちも君に期待しているんだ。もしそれを裏切れば、ボートと化して君に襲いかかってくるかもしれない。
You said that. I froze, unable to take a step back nor look behind me.
気にすんな。ただの脅し文句だよ。タッキー、ナナミッチは死んじゃったんだよ。今ここで逃げ出してもタッキーは悪くないってば。
Even if that was true,
そこから見える景色に集中してほしい。
Shogun's voice was very calm, which somehow only made him all the more intimidating. I couldn't even find an enemy to say anything back.
君にここでしてもらうことは一つだけ。
飛び降りるなんてできない。死んじゃう。
誰もそんなことは言っていないよ。
Huh? Was I wrong? Then, did that mean I didn't have to die?
君にはそこから一歩も動かずにディソードを見つけてもらう。
Find my D-sword? How? I've been searching for it as hard as I could for a long time, but I've never even gotten close. Wait a minute. What's this? This thing right next to the autumn sign. Doesn't look like a street lamp. Is that the D-sword? It was completely absurd to think I could suddenly find it here just because he'd ordered me to. I don't know, I might have already found it for you.
いわば妄想の剣。それだけ言えばわかるだろう。
No.
騙されちゃダメだよ、タッキー。ディソードなんて実在しないって。妄想が実際にあるわけないっしょ。
見つかるわけないよ。
君はこれまでに剣を持った人間と何度か接触した。そうだね。その人物から聞いているはず。理想度をどうやって手に入れたのかよく思い出した。
この剣は命運を握る。この剣は嘆きを収束させたもの。この剣は超越した場所に干渉するためのもの。異空間のようなもの。同一次元上にあるもう一つの可能性、あるいは妄想。言い方にあまり意味はないわ。唯一確かなこの剣もその領域に存在しているということ。いつの間にかそこにあった。気づかなかったわ、最初は。でもちょっとだけ見方を変えたら分かった。もしかしたら匠にももう見えているのかも。見ているだけで。世界を疑え、仕組みを知れ。お前の見ている景色は本物か。妄想は現実にすることが可能だ。本当じゃないものが景色に紛れ込む。つまりエラーを現実として認識させる。
そうだよ。すでに多くのヒントが提示されているよね。君にはもう見えているはず。君の眼下に広がっているその景色の中に。
So, what he was saying was, Shougan was hiding a D-sword somewhere in the scenery I was looking at, and I just had to find it.
見つけたら許してくれるの？
見つけるだけじゃクエストクリアにはならない。実際に剣を手に入れるんだ。その場から一歩も動いちゃならないっていうルールを破らないようにしてね。
There was no way I could do that. If I couldn't move from here, how was I supposed to grasp the fucking sword? What the hell did he even want me to do?
だからあいつは無理難題を突きつけておいて結局タッキーを殺したいだけなんだって。
それができないならナナミちゃんの命はないよ。
逃げようタッキー。お家に帰ろう。
He just said if I move one step from here, Nanami will die.
だからナナミッチはどうせ助からないってば。
But he said that I could save her.
あいつの言葉を信じるの？嘘ついてるかもしれないよ。
What if you're wrong? I strained my eyes. The bright lights from below made it hard to see much of the scenery at all. The farther away it was, the harder it was to see. I was trying as hard as I could to look around. You're not trying hard enough. But the scenery I could see from here wasn't all that vast. Most of it was hidden behind the buildings. But I had to find my sword.
無理だよ。
What the hell was I supposed to do? I thought about what Ayase and Sena had said once more.
でもちょっとだけ見方を変えたら分かった。本当じゃないものが景色に紛れ込む。
And when I thought about that, For some reason, I recalled the pattern of the ceiling in my parents' house. Back when I was a kid, I remembered having random thoughts about it before I'd gone to sleep. To me, the grain of the wood on the ceiling had looked somewhat like a face. And once I'd seen it that way, I could no longer see it as anything else. What do we have here? Pareidolia? A type of optical illusion in which the shape of a stain on the wall looks like a human face. The shape of a cloud in the sky looks like an animal or other similar phenomenon. Kind of like the face of Mars. A large majority of spirit photography is simply pareidolia.
Hi, 目の錯覚、目の錯覚。そんな木目、どこにでもいっぱいあるよ。
She was right. This didn't really compare to wood patterns, did it?
切り取るんだ。
Shougan murmured, his tone as detached as ever.
剣が見えたなら、そこから切り取る。君にはそれができる。
意味不明。そいつは適当言ってるだけだよ。
妄想は現実にすることが可能だ。
Just like that flower bed. Just like when Ayase had divided herself in two. The last time I tried to materialize a real D sword, I tried using a delusion on the fake one, but it didn't work. I shook my head once more and scanned the scenery visible to me from here. What the hell is this? And I saw a quick save notification. Yes and no. I saw a D sword. Oh. Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I see one right here. So, can I select yes? I distinctly saw a sword. If I move from here, I can take it. No. I'm not allowed to move from here. I can see the sword from other places than here. I don't think so. It's not actually a sword. No, it looks like a sword to me.
君には失望したよ。
I failed, didn't I? I felt a strong push on my back. Before I could even notice, someone had moved up right behind me. I hadn't felt any presence. It couldn't have been Shougan. I hadn't heard the creaking sound of a wheelchair. Then, who? The nightscape of Shibuya Station spun around and around. I fell to the earth. I felt the wind rushing over me. The ground was closing in. I could hear screams, or rather cheers, all around me. Is this it? Is this how it ends? Is this how I die? Apparently. God, no! Not like this. 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 Not like... Well, shit, I failed. I made a quick save, so can I just use this? I think it's here. I saw a sword. Again, I'm positive I see something here. I distinctly saw a sword. No. I wouldn't say it's distinct. Let me try my angle of attack a little bit differently here. I only saw something that looked like a sword. I can see the sword from other places than here. I'm gonna say yes, this one too.
君には失望したよ。
Clearly, I'm not getting something here. It looks like a damn sword, so that has to be the yes to the first two, right? If I move from here, I can take it. That's not what the rules say. It's not actually a sword. Let's try this then. Oh! I'd seen it. There you go, my friend. There you fucking go. Christ, I was like 1 or 2 more attempts from looking up a guide on how to do this, but yeah, looks like I got it this time. Within the night landscape blurred by my teary eyes. Amid the scenery in which light was warped by my welling tears, I found a spot that looked just like a sword. Just like what Ayase had said. I hadn't noticed it at first, but when I ever so slightly altered my perspective, it was there before I knew it. Even if it had just been a coincidence, I was more than happy with it. The more I thought of it as a sword, the more defined it became, and over time, it was becoming more and more real. It was slowly turning to a definite part of the scenery. And eventually, even its contours became clearly distinguishable.
見つけたんだね。
Likely having noticed my change in demeanor, Shougan immediately spoke to me.
では手を伸ばしてその剣を切り取ってほしい。深く考えなくていいんだ。君にならできるよ。
できるわけないじゃん。ダメ、タッキー、そんなことしたら下に落ちちゃう。落ちたら死んじゃうよ。
I looked down. I saw the crowd filled with countless people. The ambulance still had yet to arrive. Just like back at noon, the response time was far, far too slow. Not that it was surprising, just that was just how damaging the earthquake this morning had truly been.
切り取るなんてできないよ。
固定観念にとらわれたらダメだ。最初からできるわけがないと思っていたら何もできない。常識を捨て去ってあるがままを見ればいいんだ。君には力がある。世界はその力に応えてくれる。あの花壇みたいにね。
Could I really do that? If I just reached out, would that sword become mine? If so, then I should at least give it a try. Ayase had said that my sword would bring me salvation. Maybe those words were referring to exactly what was happening now. I would grasp the sword, complete the quest, bring Nanami home safe and sound, and have Shougan leave me alone forever. And then, I would return to my peaceful life that I've been living up until now.
そんなに都合よくいくと思う？将軍があっさりタッキーを見逃すって？だって相手は10人も殺した連続殺人鬼なんだよ。
Even Shougan would make me do the impossible. I could do it. He wouldn't tell me to do it if I wasn't capable of it.
あいつはタッキーを殺したいだけ。忘れたの？集団ダイブの映像。将軍は5人の男女を1回も触れることなく転落死させたんだよ。
I'm sorry, Saratan, but I'm already reaching for my salvation. Go fuck yourself, Sarah! The crowd below started rumbling. My every move was being monitored by the thousands of people packed in front of the station. And it wasn't just them. I was also being watched by tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people, all over Japan watching live on TV. I started feeling nauseous. The extreme pressure imposed by such a large number of people made my heart feel like it could explode at any second. No. Just forget about them. If I stayed focused on them, I'd be too nervous to even lift a finger. I need to focus only on the sword. Being as careful to maintain my footing as possible, I reached my hand out. I tried to aim directly at the sword, letting my intuition do the rest. I felt nothing. The wind rushed toward me relentlessly. On top of that, the direction it was coming from was inconsistent. 1 second it was blowing at me from the front. The next it pushed me from the side. I clung to the acrylic plate in an attempt to support myself, but it was too slippery to bring me anything more than emotional support. If I let my guard down even slightly, I'd get blown off. Even so, I was still trying desperately to grab the sword, but no matter how hard I tried, I didn't succeed.
できるわけないよ。だってあれは本当の剣じゃないんだよ。
Then make it one, buddy. Tears welled up once more. My vision blurred, and what had once appeared to be an object similar to a sword began to lose its shape. I quickly wiped my tears away. I had the feeling that once I lost sight of it, it wouldn't appear ever again.
それならもっと手を伸ばせばいい。
Fuck you! You don't know how this feels! I bit my lip to hold back the tears, leaned forward more than I had before, and fished around the open air with my hand. But I still couldn't grasp the sword.
もっと
But I fell from here. I looked down once again. I was higher than I thought I was. I felt dizzy, so I pulled back and clung to the acrylic plate once more.
どうしたの？剣を早く手に入れて。でないといつまで経ってもナナミちゃんが戻ってこないよ。
I shouldn't have looked down. I couldn't stop shaking. I thought I was going to slip because of it. I was so unbelievably afraid.
できないよ。許して。
君はあまり僕を舐めない方がいい。君のわがままに付き合うつもりはないんだ。理想度を手に入れる。それができないなら、君の妹は死ぬ。君も死ねばいい。ただそれだけ。
God. I don't want to die.
死にたくない。
I had no choice but to try again. I leaned out through the hole and extended my arm. I could still see the sword over there. I tried again and again, but of course nothing happened. It felt like I could reach it, but for some reason, I just couldn't do it. I leaned out even farther. I stretched my hand out as far as I could, reaching out my entire body to try and grasp the sword. I even strained out my fingertips. And then, I slowly closed my hand. But just like every time before it, I felt nothing.
手が届かないよ。
It was impossible. Just like Seratan had told me it was. There had never been a way for me to grab that translucent sword. Perspective had made it look normal-sized, but when I actually thought about it, I realized how enormous it actually was. It wasn't a size a human could realistically carry.
その剣を掴めばクエストクリアなんだよ。
手を折っちゃう。届かない。
ナナミちゃんを助けなくていいの？
助けて。もう許して。死にたくないんだよ。
昼間のことを思い出すんだ。君の力があればそこから落ちたとしてもまた花壇を出現させれば君は落ちても死なない。
自信ある？
Well, he's got a point there. Right then, Seratan's snarky whisper reached my ear. Am I sure I can do it? Do what?
タッキーがここから落ちて下の地面に激突するまでほんの3秒もないよ。その間に自分の意志でまた花壇を出現させる。タッキーがそんなすごいことできる？
Would it kill you to do any actual cheering for me for once in your goddamn imaginary life, Sarah? You really aren't helping anything.
今まで一度も自分で意識してその力とかってのを使ったことないっしょ？
Oh, Lord. That was true. Even if I did have powers, I had no idea how to use them. Okay, I have a feeling this is a moment of truth decision I have to make here. So, come what may, I'm choosing green again. Hope to God I'm making the right choice here.
ねえ、逃げよう。タッキーはよくやったよ。でもこれ以上は無理。死にたくないっしょ。
But Nanami.
タッキーはよくやったよ。妹を亡くした悲劇の兄として今後もやっていけるって。
As if that's something to be happy about. The tragic big brother?
PTSD って言えば何もかも許されるっしょ。正々堂々と引きこもれるんだよ。あ、もしかしたらさ、どっかの偽善者が同情してタッキーを養ってくれるかもしんないね。ブログに適当なこと書けば出版社に目をつけられてベストセラーになっちゃうかも。日本中が泣いたとか白々しいキャッチコピーがつけられて、それに載せられたバカでゆとりな人たちからの感動した、共感したっていう絶賛の嵐。それで印税もガッポガッポ。半年後に映画が決定っしょ。すごいよ。ナナミッチをここで見殺しにするだけでタッキーにはバラ色の人生が待ってるんさ。
You really are a horrible person, Seratan. I don't know if anybody has ever told you that. I don't know if your mother has ever told you that, but you really are horrible.
さあ、どっちを選ぶ？ ッキーがここで頑張ってでも死んで全てが無になるか、バラ色の人生か。
Oh, thank God the sword is still there.
死にたくない。痛いのは嫌だ。死ぬのは嫌だ。消えるのは嫌だ。ナナミがどうなろうと僕は痛くも痒くもない。
That's bullshit and you know it, man. It's do or die time. Let's just leap out and reach for it. I muttered all that to myself. That was my way of trying to make it sound convincing. The one I should trust. It wasn't Shougan. It was Seiratan.
あの剣に見えるだけで剣じゃない。ただの光の反射とか目の錯覚だ。
そうだよ。さあ帰ろう。帰ったらさ、私のパンツ見ながらいっぱいエッチなこと想像していいから。
Don't you try to sway me with those crocodile tears of yours, bitch.
僕帰る。
My heart is too cold for that tactic to work.
帰ってセイラタンでハーハーするよ。
嬉しいな。タッキーのためにエッチなポーズたくさんしてあげるね。
I slowly withdrew my outstretched hand. That alone made me feel much more at ease. Don't do it, God damn it! I took Seiratan out of my chest pocket and gazed at her smile. As long as I had her forgiveness, I didn't need anything else. I sniffled, sucking up the snot that had been dripping from my nose. I then turned around and started walking towards Shougan.
誰が動いていいと許可した？クエストはまだクリアしていないぞ。
僕は勇者なんかじゃない。妹一人救えないようなヘタレな妹だよ。僕に期待しないで。僕を見ないで。僕をそっとしておいて。
ではナナミちゃんは殺すことにするよ。
どうせもう死んでる。
She was already dead. Nanami had been brutally murdered by Shougan. Everyone would report on it starting tomorrow, treating it as the 6th New Gen incident. It saddened me, but there was nothing I could do about it. Yes, there is, you dumbass! I heard the sound of dripping water. No, it wasn't water. It was blood. Nanami's blood. Dark red blood dripped from the wrist where her hand had been severed.
なんで助けてくれなかったの？鬼って最低。
I screamed my guts out. The world turned crimson. My anger, my sadness, and my shame were ripping my head apart. My thoughts were a chaotic mess. Without any rhyme or reason, I charged towards Shougan. I made to grab him within his hiding place in the shadows. But I didn't get the physical response I'd expected. I collapsed along with the wheelchair. I must have hurt my elbow, as pain was shooting through it. Grimacing, I searched for the person who should have been sitting on the wheelchair. At my feet, a head tumbled across the ground. Terrified, I slowly reached out my hand, and what I felt was extremely hard. Rather than a freshly severed head, it was very clearly a helmet.
これ
A pitch black helmet.
ダーススパイダー
Wait, that's it? No searching for Nanami or anything? Despite midnight quickly approaching, the ticket gates of the subway's Hanzomon line were still filled to the brim with people. The earthquake had violently disrupted the public transportation schedules, and no one was even attempting to hide their frustration as they passed through the ticket gates. Employing a sidelong glance, Bon Yusuji inspected the monitor resting in the station attendant booth. The station staff had received a call yesterday during their morning operations. The caller had reported that a high school girl wielding a gigantic bladed weapon was going on a rampage in the area. The police had been dispatched in response to this, but upon arriving at the scene, they found no trace of the girl, nor the man who had supposedly been attacked. Bon, who had happened to overhear the story earlier today, was very interested in the appearance of the male victim. The fact that there had been several similar incidents had also caught his attention. This was why Bon was making an appearance here at such an hour. According to his sources, the incident had been captured in full on one of the surveillance cameras. When Bon asked the station attendant to show him the video, they willingly agreed, but warned the detective that the video was a little creepy. Duly noting this, Bon elected to have them show him the video. The video was full of static. Maybe it's from the earthquake, Bon thought to himself. There had been various reports about the earthquake causing citizens to lose hard disk data, leaving Bon to wonder whether it was related. It would be difficult to identify anyone in the recording, as they were just barely visible. The recording featured a single man. He was standing by the wall in the far right-hand corner of the screen. The wall was located slightly from the ticket gates, meaning passengers would not travel past it very often as they were changing trains. Incidentally, a few other passengers had just crossed in front of the camera. The man's appearance was hard to make out due to the fierce static, but he was fairly short and thin, and he was carrying a large rucksack. What exactly he was doing, Bon could not say. After about an hour or so had passed in the video, a small change occurred. A few people commuting to work were walking in the direction of the man, and then they swiftly stopped. To Bon, it looked like as if they had been drawn to the man with the rucksack. What was truly strange, however, was that they did not even speak to him. They simply stood there in a daze. The people who had stopped did not seem to be acquaintances of the man. They were of different ages, sexes, statures. There was absolutely nothing that they all shared. What in blazes is going on? Staring at the monitor, Bon tilted his head to the side. And as he did so, a lone girl entered the frame. She had long hair, and she was wearing a uniform from Sumie Academy. The girl headed straight for the man with the rucksack, in a manner that could only be described as exuding nothing but pure, unadulterated confidence. Her movements were entirely unlike those who had stopped before. Instead of halting, the girl pushed aside the people gathered there and seized the man by his collar. For a short period of time, the two of them argued about something. Rather than an argument, however, it was far closer to the girl simply screaming at the man without giving him room for air. Or at least that's how it was. That was how it appeared. Few of the people who had stopped seemed to return to their senses and promptly left the scene. Eventually, the girl thrust the man away from her. The girl took a step back from the man who had fallen on his rear, then assumed a strange pose. She lowered her hips and brought both fists next to her ears. The girl looked as if she was holding something, but there was nothing in her hands. According to the report, the girl had been wielding a large blade, but where on earth could she be hiding such a thing? The answer to that soon became apparent. Suddenly, the screen, the camera, shook. It was not static. The rustling hair and clothes of the passerby made clear. The surveillance camera itself was shaking. Bond gawked at the screen. He had no idea where she had retrieved it from, but the next thing he knew, the girl was holding a gigantic sword in her hand, one that was longer than she was tall. Bond asked for the tape to be rewound just so he could confirm what he had seen. But no matter what angle he examined it from, the sword appeared to have been conjured out of thin air. The girl had not moved a single muscle. She had remained in her hunched position the entire time. This much was undeniable. How was the surveillance camera footage able to capture her sword? That shouldn't be possible, right? The people in the video went into a panic when faced with the sudden appearance of the sword. But the girl did not seem to care about the people around her. The man with the rucksack, however, was very clearly terrified. He tried desperately to scramble to his feet and run away. But the girl would not allow that. With incredibly agile movement, she pursued the fleeing man and swung her gigantic sword as if it was light as a feather. In a manner akin to a violent windstorm, the sword tore the man's rucksack to pieces. The impact was so strong, the man immediately collapsed to the ground. Despite this, he appeared uninjured. In fact, when the police officers arrived on the scene immediately after receiving the call, they had not found even a single trace of blood. Then, as if the girl had heard Bond's murmuring, something that should have been impossible considering it was a recording, she suddenly turned toward the camera. The screen ever so slightly distorted. And the girl's figure disappeared in an instant. It was as if she had never been there to begin with. The man's shredded rucksack had been left behind, and the remnants of it were proof the girl had been there. It was hard to tell because of the static, but it was clear the girl had disappeared from the screen in less than a second. Bond rewound the tape again. There was nothing that seemed unnatural about the time displayed in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. In other words, the footage had not been edited. But if that were true, how could Bond explain the girl and the sword? Bond, feeling as though he had seen a ghost, could do nothing more than remain completely and utterly puzzled. That's weird. How could a Unless I'm missing something, how could a surveillance camera footage capture any footage of the D-swords? I thought they were only visible to people who had the same powers as D-sword wielders. A world of complete and utter white. And I was lying right in the center of it all. It felt as if I were floating, but I didn't know whether or not I actually was. I couldn't figure out what direction I was facing. Not up, nor down. Not left, nor right. The silence was deafening. It felt as if there were hundreds of insects buzzing around in my head at once. If someone were to tell me this was the afterlife, I couldn't see myself contesting it. That was how. Monotonous. Simplistic. Tranquil. Orderly. Immaculate. Empty. And peaceful the world was. Perhaps this was what the mind of Buddha was like upon reaching enlightenment. It was so incredibly different from my own mind. I wanted to stay here forever. The irritation that came with reality, the loneliness, the pain, the suffering. I didn't want to face any of it anymore. As my thoughts began to cascade, I heard a noise burst into the white world that had previously been silent. The sound of a door being opened, and the sound of someone's footsteps, getting closer and closer.
Oni, 来たよ。一緒、一緒。お兄、お兄、今日ね、ナナね、いいもの持ってきたんだよ。はい、これ、プレゼント。手編みの帽子なんだよ。すごいでしょ？すごいでしょ？もう冬だしね。ナナね、帽子好きだから編んだの。使ってね。
That was nice of you.
もう、お兄、無視しないでよ。ああ、ご飯残してるじゃん。せっかくのカレーなのに。ちゃんと食べないとダメなんだよ。ねえねえ、病院のご飯って美味しくないって本当？でも食べないとダメ。起きろ、お兄。食べずに寝たら夜になってお腹空いちゃうんだから。
Someone's hand made its way under my back and forcibly shook my body awake. That was when I first realized that my eyes had been closed. When I opened my eyes, a little girl was standing there. It was Nanami, my little sister. But she was awfully little. It was Nanami from a long time ago. But how long ago? I wondered. She must have been at least in elementary school.
はい、あーして。
The younger Nanami scooped up some curry with a plastic spoon and offered it to me. And I slapped the hand holding the spoon. You little... Even after all this time, I still didn't know what had been going through my head. But in that moment, I knocked away the tray of curry and rice with my hand and sent it crashing to the floor.
お兄、お行儀悪いんだ。お母さんに言いつけてやるぞ。
Nanami crouched down to the floor and picked up the tray I had cast aside. She then retrieved a washcloth from the sink in the corner of the room and began cleaning up the mess I'd made.
ほんと、世話が焼けるな。 ナナがいないと何にもできないんだから。
That's enough. I covered my face with my hands, then slowly closed my eyes.
ごめんね。あなたを守ってあげられなくて。
That should be my line. I slowly opened my eyes and saw a white ceiling. It was so bright, it nearly blinded me. I blinked my eyes a few times. I tried to move my fingertips. I tried to raise my hand in front of my face. The palm of my hand created a shadow. At last, I was free from the blinding glare. I had been dreaming about Nanami. Ever since I could remember, she had an especially strong will. After the bus accident back in elementary school, I'd stopped talking to anyone and everyone. But even so, that part of Nanami only became stronger and stronger. Unlike my parents, who were simply overprotective and nothing else, she'd taken care of me all while remaining strict and firm. But that dream, had I ever been hospitalized before? Had I gone in for I had gone in for checkups, sure, but well, it was just a dream, so there was no reason to take it nor the contradiction seriously. A dream? Or a buried memory? I was lying on a bed. It was a white bed with a pipe frame. The sheets were white. The pillows were white. The linoleum floor was white. The wallpaper was white. The fluorescent white lights on the ceiling were white. The curtains covering the windows were white. The small shelf next to the bed was white. The ceramic water pitcher was white. The paper cups were white. I was starting to get fed up with all the white. Mustering up my resolve, I attempted to sit up. For a split second, I felt a numbing pain jolt through the area around my waist, but it went away just as suddenly as it appeared. The room was fairly large, at least twice the size of my base, but what really bothered me was how incredibly dreary it was. Maybe it was a hospital room. There was a pair of green slippers lined up right beneath the bed. I was relieved to find a color other than white. My body was moving just fine, and it didn't seem like I was dead either. I was thirsty. I wanted a cola. An ice-cold, carbonated cola. But there was no way I'd be able to find something like that in this pure white room, so I was forced to pour water directly from the pitcher into my mouth. It was a bit lukewarm, but it was enough to satisfy my thirst. Well, look who it is, and you have the dull eyes of unhappiness. Should I be scared? Upon finishing the water, I took a breath. The door then opened, and a nurse wearing white scrubs came into the room. It was enough for me to confirm that I was in a hospital after all. Upon seeing me, her eyes grew slightly wide. She must have thought I would still be asleep.
あら。西條さん、目が覚めたんですね。
Facing me, she gave me a gentle smile, the mark of a true nurse. But something told me I'd seen this person before. Oh, I remember her now. She was the grill who had been at the hospital when I'd gone to see Dr. Takashima a while back. What had she said her name was? I couldn't remember, so I stole a glance at the name tag on her chest. Hazuki was written on it. Right. Hazuki-san.
お体の調子はどうですか?
Hazuki-san held out a thermometer to me so naturally I couldn't help but take it.
体温を測ってくださいね.
How nicely she asked me. I had no choice but to comply. My head was overrun with question marks, but I put the thermometer inside my armpit nonetheless. Immediately after I did so, a memory burst to life inside my head. I remembered what had happened. Back then, I had given up on saving Nanami. I had grabbed onto Shougan's wheelchair, but there had been no response. It collapsed in a heap, and when I looked again, all I had been holding was Darth Spider's helmet. Count Darth Spider, the very embodiment of evil in Spark Wars. Shouldn't Silk Wars be used since, you know, we're dealing with a spider and all? Spiders make silk. The dark side of the web and all that. His black-clad appearance was famous even in Japan. But I would have never thought that Shougan would cosplay as him, so my anger had been overridden by raw confusion. After that, I stood up and looked at the wheelchair, but there had been no one in it. Only a black hood draped over the back of it. That was another part of Darth Spider's costume. I then examined my surroundings one more time, but there had been no one there. I'd been the only one on that pitch black rooftop. And how are they able to push me to my death in the alternate ending, where I failed those questions? My God, those grins! Suddenly, the press then came flooding in all at once. They had surrounded me with lights, cameras, and microphones. I had no room to breathe. There had been more than 10 of them in total. I had been so overwhelmed by it all, my terror simply grew and grew. I wanted to run away, but I couldn't move a muscle. I'd been a total mess.
西尾君、帽子はどうなっちゃったのかな？
結局ニュージェネの犯人は誰なのかわからないということですか？
そのダーススパイダーのヘルメットは何か超能力と関係あるのかな？日常さん、答えてくれませんか？これで終わりなんて言うなら電波ジャックですよ。
結局何がしたかったんです？ニュージェネに便乗した売名行為ですか？不謹慎だと思わないですか？
ユーリ・ブライトマンさんとは最近話したから、どんなこと話した？地震とニュージェネについて何か関係あると思いますか？
その手に持っている美少女フィギュアは何らかの儀式的なアイテムと考えていいんですか？
このような行動を取ったことにはアニメやゲームの影響はあったのかな？日常さん、日常君。
The lighting pointed at me had been incredibly hot. It felt as if my skin was being singed by the sun during the hottest part of the summer. The flood of people from the media made me feel lightheaded. My field of vision had been spinning around in circles. I'd been cornered. I'd been panicking. I'd been unable to breathe. I'd grasped my head. I can't see anything. I didn't want to see anything. I can't hear anything. I don't want to hear anything. I can't feel anything. I don't want to feel anything. At the very same moment I'd screamed, like a computer that had short-circuited. My consciousness had severed. Only just one sad little wee woo. That's all I get. I feel robbed. I deserve at least 3 wee woos. That was exactly what happened. I'd lost consciousness. And then, how had I been up here at this hospital? I couldn't remember. At the very least, I didn't think I'd come on my own, so maybe I'd been brought to the hospital by an ambulance. Hazuki-san was writing something in the clipboard she was holding. She must have had a slip of paper clipped onto it. Was she writing about my condition? I checked what time it was via the simplistic watch wrapped around her wrist. It was a little after 6 a.m. I'd slept for a really long time. Regardless, why had I been brought here? You know what? I think I'll go neutral this time. If Hazuki-san was here, then that meant this was my normal hospital. It wasn't like me being brought to a general hospital was particularly weird, but something still didn't feel right. Why was Hazuki-san coming to check on me? That question really bothered me. I mean, Hazuki-san was a psychiatric nurse. If Hazuki-san was coming to check on me, didn't that mean that the room I was in was also used by psychiatric patients? A reasonable assumption. Maybe all the normal beds were full because all the people who'd been injured in yesterday's earthquake, and they just happened to put me in one of the beds from the psychiatric ward because of that. Or maybe they decided that me collapsing was due to psychological factors rather than physical ones. Well, I suppose they wouldn't be wrong then. My mood was gradually getting worse and worse.
昨日ご家族がお見えになっていたんですけど、西條さんの意識が戻らないので、日付が変わる頃にお帰りになりました。今日は診察時間が始まる頃にお母様が来るそうですよ。
I nodded in response, not having the energy to say anything back. Mom, I'm sorry for being such a disgrace. I'm an embarrassment to Japan. No, to the entire world. The entire thing had been televised, meaning it had already spread to the entire country. I was sure my shameful behavior had been uploaded to YouTube as well. I had no idea why I'd been made into the amazing Esper boy. And it didn't make any sense to broadcast my every move. And on the day of a huge earthquake, no less. When I was nothing but a boring otaku freak. It wasn't normal. Well, this Shougan that we were dealing with wanted us to awaken, and he wanted us to do it in front of a live audience. Maybe to send some sort of message. Either way, having a live audience was clearly a key factor in whatever they were trying to make us do. Because of that, I couldn't help but think that everyone from back then was being mind-controlled by Shougan. But regardless of whether or not that was true, I'd still publicly humiliated myself. It wasn't something I'd escape after enduring a quick shitstorm online that'd be forgotten about in a week. Was this it for me? Would I no longer be able to live in peace? Probably not. Suddenly, Nanami's face appeared in the back of my mind. I bit down on my lip and hugged my knees. Even if that was no longer attainable, as long as I could save Nanami, none of it would matter. You didn't save her, though. You chickened out. Remember? Even people from all over the world snickered at me and called me a pathetic loser for the rest of my life. It would make no difference to me. But I couldn't save her. couldn't even do that much.
Nana.
Tears began to fall from my eyes.
どうしました？どこか痛みます？
Shaking my head over and over, I kept on crying. Nanami was dead. Nanami was dead, and she was never coming back. It was all my fault. All my fault. All my fault. All my fault. Because of how worthless I was. Because of how much of a fucking loser I was. Nanami was dead. Back on the rooftop, I'd given up so easily on obtaining the D-sword. I had Saratan's seductive voice in my ear, but that was just my pathetic self pretending to be someone else. I was the one who'd made the decision. I'd made myself look like a pitiful victim. I'd chosen to sacrifice Nanami so that I would survive. I hated myself. How fucking pathetic I was. If only I just tried just a little bit harder. I told myself that I'd given up of my own volition, but now that it was all over, I regretted every single thing I'd done on that rooftop. I was absolutely disgusted with myself. She was gone. Nothing could save her now. And yet, even still, I couldn't help but think that if I could just go back to that rooftop and I just tried a little bit harder. But I knew that even if I could actually go back, I'd just give up all over again. Find some other excuse to get me out of it. Well, I have the power of saving, so maybe I could do something different. That was just who I was. A completely useless, irredeemable piece of shit.
Nanami. ごめん。Nanami.
Hasuki-sen rubbed my back in an attempt to comfort me. I was a useless sack of shit to the very end. I was even causing problems for nurses that had nothing to do with me. The tears refused to stop.
何か後悔していることがあるんですね。
A lot of things, actually.
でもきっと妹さんも許してくれますよ。
Huh? How'd she know that Nanami was my sister? Even aside, the formulaic constellation she was giving me was the last thing I needed right now. I'm sorry, Hasuki-san, but no one else can understand how I feel. I hated myself. I was pathetic. Did nothing but take advantage of everyone else. And only ever thought about myself. The world would be better off without me. Maybe I should just end it all. If you do that, then Nanami's death really would have been for nothing. If she's actually dead, then I say you gotta spend the rest of your days living, and figuring out why exactly she was killed. And by that I mean go after the son of a bitch that kidnapped her, and see if maybe you can do something about him. You kill yourself now, you'll never get an opportunity to make right by failing her.
昨日もしきりに西條さんのことを心配していましたよ。
What?
とても可愛らしい妹さんですね。
What was she talking about?
Nanami は 妹は死にました。
She'd been kidnapped by Shougan. Her hand had been cut off. Then she'd been in prison somewhere. And in the end, she died all alone and afraid. When I imagined it, it felt like my heart was being torn into dozens of tiny pieces.
そうなんですか。ごめんなさい。勘違いしてしまって。
All my life, I thought that Nanami was annoying. Although, we had been siblings for 16 years. Even though she called me a jerk more times than I could count, she was always worried about me. The reason why she'd always nagged me so much was because she'd been trying to help me break free from my toxic lifestyle. At least you acknowledge that. Whenever she brought me food from our parents' house, she didn't just give it to me and leave. She'd always tried to share it with me. Normally, if a girl her age had an otaku freak for a brother, they'd never associate with him. And while the things she'd said didn't make her the easiest person to be around, she'd still talk to me. And she would listen too. Whenever I'd been at school, she never avoided me. No, she would actually approach me. No matter what, Nanami had always treated me, a vile, otaku freak virgin, like her brother. Like a human being. Her mere existence had helped me more than I ever knew. But realizing that did me no good now. It was too late. Such is one of the many tragedies of life. Oftentimes you don't fully appreciate something that you have in your life until it's gone. I've been there.
でも、だとしたら鬼ってどういう意味なのかしら。
Huh? I looked up, unable to properly comprehend what I had just heard. As my eyes were blurry with tears, I couldn't see Hazuki-san's face properly. What had she just said?
眠ってる西条さんをお兄、お兄と何度も呼んでいたから、その印象が強くて。
If you're not bullshitting me, then he let her go? He said that hand that he left in Takumi's base could have been from someone else, even though the bracelet and phone did belong to Nanami. So he was telling the truth? So he was actually saying indirectly that that wasn't actually Nanami's hand? It was all a bluff. There was only one person who called me that.
それ、本当ですか?
Vaulting out of my bed, I pressed Hazuki-san for an answer.
はい、何がです？
ナナミが、妹がナナミがここに来てたんですか？
いえ、はっきりお名前を聞いたわけでは。
僕のこと鬼って呼んでたんですね。
ええ。
ナナミは今どこに？
ですから。昨日はお帰りになりましたけど、西条さんのお母様と一緒に。
怪我とかしてませんでしたか？
はい。いえ、特には。
元気だったんですね。ナナミは元気だったんですね。
はい。いえ、ナナミさんかどうかはわかりませんけど、昨日いらしていた女の子は元気そうでしたよ。
Nanami was alive. I won't believe it until I see it. Somebody call her over here and have her demand that I feed her burgers. Then I'll believe it. From everything Husky-san had said, it had to be true. I sat down on the bed, utterly dazed. But how? Shougan had said that he wouldn't give Nanami back to me until I completed his quest. Had he just released her out of pity? Again, I think it was probably a bluff, if anything. Again, assuming that what Husky is saying here is actually the truth, and it was actually Nanami, who, you know, was wailing on us, calling us Oni-chan, Oni-chan, before going home with Mommy. Or had Nanami escaped on her own? But then, how would that explain the hand that had been sent to me? According to Husky-san, Nanami hadn't even been injured.
もしかしたら君の家に送ったあの手首は別人のものかもしれないよ。
What he'd said, it hadn't been a lie. He played me. I've been dancing right to his tune. Shougan had deceived me. No, that didn't matter right now.
そっか。
I see. So that was it. It was all coming together. Nanami had never been kidnapped at all. Back when I'd been at O-Front, trying desperately to grab the D-sword, Nanami must have been relaxing back at home reading manga, or going out to karaoke with her friends, so she could show off her shitty singing voice. Or doing whatever else she liked to do. Oh, now hold on, I'm sure she's got a perfectly fine singing voice. Let me be the judge. I was crying, but I couldn't help but laugh.
西条さん
将軍にまんまと騙された。なんという壮大な釣りだよ。
This poor nurse. She must be so confused right now. She was alive. Nanami was alive. I could see that bratty-ass face of hers again. I could hear that obnoxious, shrill voice of hers again. The mere thought was enough to bring me a deep sense of relief, an intense joy that rose from the bottom of my heart.
よかった。
I couldn't stop crying, but the tears weren't the tears of regret I'd been crying earlier.
よかった。
I was an utterly useless pile of shit, but I couldn't help it. The day before, I'd given up without being able to do anything. But even so, as long as Nanami was alive, I didn't wish for anything else. The whole world could mock me until the end of time for all I cared. I was overjoyed. Thank God. She was safe. Oh, Lord. Again, I'm gonna assume with 90% certainty that she is actually okay. But I want to actually see her in person and verify that she isn't missing a hand before I can breathe a 100% complete sigh of relief. But I'm pretty sure I'll see her soon. In the next episode, because I think I'm going to go ahead and cut things off here. Feels like a good place to stop. Whew. Well, that was a very intense. This was a very intense episode. Not gonna lie. But I mean, hey, it looks like we at least, at the very least, were able to perceive our D sword. Too bad we weren't able to actually get it, though. But then again, considering the scenario in which we were forced to try and grab it, I'm starting to wonder if it really would be such a good idea for us to actually awaken after all. I have the power to change the world, according to that Shougan. And if that's the case, then me awakening would probably spell disaster for everybody, because clearly this Shougan fellow, and I guess knows me as well, thinking about them, they want the power to alter the world around them. If I awaken, then I essentially become a living MacGuffin for them to use for whatever world-changing plans that they have in mind for everybody. I think it's a pretty reasonable assumption to make, given everything I've seen so far. So, yeah. In that case, it looks like I am the center of the bad guys' plans after all. Which I guess isn't surprising. But still. But I'm still very interested in the fact that the Shougan that we've encountered used a voice changer and was clearly, I guess, using some kind of dummy to communicate to us. They had a wheelchair, yes, but still. That's the only similarity that I've seen between the Shougan that we've encountered prior to this encounter and the Shougan we've encountered here. I think they were two different people. The one I dealt with in this episode, and every other instance before then, I think they're two different people. Which I guess raises the obvious question: who is this second Shougan we were dealing with today? And what exactly do they want with our power? What does the first Shougan want with our power, for that matter? Questions keep piling up in my mind, but I don't really feel like I'm getting that much closer to any solid answers on anything. And I feel like I've said that several times already, but the sentiment still holds true. Anyway, I think I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna stop rambling and save the speculation for next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Chaos Head Noah. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to hit like and subscribe. And I will see you all next time. Take care.